When mishaps do occur, there's something about flying that brings out all the extremes. Any number of situations or combinations of event can result in unique and unusual reactions, not just from passengers, but also from the flight itself. Most of the time, all we hope for when we board an airplane is a kind neighbor in the next seat to us and some new in-flight entertainment, but occasionally there are unforeseen in-flight extras. Here, we have the 28 wackiest incidents that have ever happened on a flight. So, make sure to watch this video until the end as we uncover quite a lot of weird incidents that took place. A Thomas Cook flight bound for Cuba from Manchester had to turn around due to a technical problem. Flight officials argued that the problem was an oil-related one and that the shattered wing had no impact on the plane's ability to fly, even though passengers could see that half of the wing was missing from the aircraft. A few years ago, the father of a certain person was returning to Toronto while flying a 737 somewhere over Las Vegas. Later in the evening, the visibility was limited, but suddenly, the person's father noticed an incredibly bright ball of light to the left of the plane that was traveling extremely quickly across the sky. He discovered a few days later that what he had seen was a missile fired from a U.S. Navy submarine. The person's father and his co-pilot did not know what it was at the time, but they could hear other pilots in the area calling it in and inquiring about it over the radio. It eventually flew by and vanished into the horizon. However, many passengers mistook it for a UFO. A pilot heard "skydiver" in the air as he was flying in and calling his position. "I hope they aren't going in this direction," he thought at first, and then there he was. The pilot prayed to not kill this guy mid-air while going through his prop. He questioned why the pilot didn't point this out more clearly. Later he learned that the pilot had been transporting his companion to a nearby skydiving field before returning to the airfield where they had left from, but he never did locate the skydiving individual. An individual claims that their father was a commercial pilot and that, in the late 1970s, the tower's surveillance of an unidentified flying object caused his plane and crew to be delayed in landing. Long story short, the crew eventually got a direction of where this thing was, and when they looked out their windows, they could see a cigar-shaped craft moving very slowly at about their same altitude. For a while, they just circled around in this traffic pattern, waiting for other planes to land before they could enter their landing pattern. The most upsetting part, according to the individual's dad, was when the crew and passengers who could see it openly gasped upon witnessing it. A woman had to be physically pulled back into the aircraft on a Southwest Airlines flight to Dallas in April 2018 because she was going to be sucked out the window, or so it seemed. The window was broken during the flight when a piece of the engine broke off and slammed against it. The woman was dragged into the glass pane by the abrupt shift in air pressure, where she hung for a few minutes halfway outside the aircraft. Despite the fact that the plane made a safe landing, the woman passed away from her injuries. In June 2018, a hailstorm badly destroyed an American Airlines plane, leaving its scared passengers in its wake. The Airbus A319 was traveling from San Antonio, Texas to Phoenix, Arizona, when it encountered a severe hailstorm, shattering the windshield and damaging the nose. The plane was forced to reroute to El Paso because there was almost no forward visibility. In an effort to make a safe landing, passengers were sobbing, shaking, and throwing up. For a group of travelers trying to return from Italy to Canada, the flight was a nightmare. The Air Transat flight, which was carrying 40 kids on a field trip, was delayed for 6 hours on the tarmac, leaving passengers with no air conditioning and only 2 glasses of water each. The temperature inside the cabin, according to passengers, reached up to 40 degrees. People were reported utilizing the laminated safety warnings in in-flight magazines as makeshift fans in the Twitter footage of the event that was provided by one unlucky soul on board. Air Transat compensated each passenger with €600 for their labor. Are you enjoying the video so far? Well, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when we upload our next video. Do you dread not being able to sit with your traveling companions? We sure do. However, at least you didn't respond as badly as the passenger who, in December 2015, on a Thai Air Asia flight from Nanjing to Bangkok, flung hot water and noodles over a flight attendant. What caused her outburst exactly? She was unable to sit with her boyfriend. Debbie Owen, a British woman, made every effort to ignore her labor-inducing contractions and wait until she landed. Her baby was delivered in the air despite her best attempts, and she was moved to first class. She gave her the initials Sky and gave her the name Shona Kirsty Ives. Southwest Airlines can't take a joke, as evidenced by the man who joked to a flight attendant that they should be getting vodka instead of water after sitting for 2 hours on a stationary plane. Despite the protests of numerous other passengers who rushed to his defense, saying all he did was make a small joke, the young attendant took issue with the innocent verbal joking and made a call to have the man removed by police. Southwest did not make an apology for the incident, and the man was not charged, but it did bring the matter to the attention of its customer service staff. Even if your dog is allowed to travel with you on an aircraft, keep him from doing a poo in the aisle. The aircraft to Philadelphia was diverted to Kansas in 2014 after an ill dog used the restroom so frequently that it made passengers sick. According to reports, the owner attempted to obtain the passengers' email addresses and made an apology offer of Starbucks gift cards. Not to sound weird, but we want those gift cards too. Even though you may have watched the movie Snakes on a Plane, you don't want it to happen. On a flight from Cairo, a man who ran a reptile store in Kuwait concealed a spitting cobra in his carry-on luggage. After the snake bit him, he attempted to contain it, but it slithered under the chairs. And, well, what happened next is unknown, but surely would have been havoc no one wants to be a part of. And by the way, the spitting cobra's venom is so lethal that it can cause death in under 15 minutes. An extremely nasty poop in 2015 caused an unexpected delay on a British Airways aircraft from London to Dubai. After barely 30 minutes in the air, the pressurized cabin of the flight caused major health and safety concerns. Passengers were housed overnight in the hopes that the guilty party would travel to the closest pharmacy. Of course, it's inconvenient when an airline misplaces your luggage, but what if the 172 gold bars in that luggage weighed more than 6,600 pounds or 3,000 kilograms? In Russia, an airplane's hatch flew open during takeoff, scattering the plane's cargo across the runway. The value of the gold bars, diamonds, and stones was about 275 million pounds. Now, that is insane. How about bringing a kangaroo on board instead of an emotionally supportive human? In 2014, Joey, an emotional support kangaroo, traveled in first class on an American Airlines flight. the sight of flames shooting from the wing of their Boeing 767 shocked the passengers on a journey from Barcelona to Russia. The aircraft quickly turned around and landed in Spain, thankfully without any incident. An odd object was found in the restroom of an American Airlines flight. Therefore, the plane made an emergency landing because at first it was believed to be a component of an explosive device. It turned out to be a camera being used by someone to watch people use the restroom. Sometimes flight attendants have to intervene in passenger fights, but other times they get into trouble themselves. In 2016, a Delta flight was halted as a result of fights between flight attendants. Did someone say catfight? Sadly, it is inevitable that some people may die while flying. If this unusual incident cannot be accommodated, you can find yourself seated next to a dead body on some larger aircraft. In 2006, the body of an old man who had died on a British Airways aircraft to America was placed in first class on one of the reclining seats. 2 Air France pilots got into a brawl in the middle of a flight in 2022. The 2 pilots got into a fight while flying an Airbus A320 from Geneva to Paris, exchanging inappropriate gestures. Upon touching down on the solid ground, both pilots were put on hold. One passenger on a trip from Tunisia to Edinburgh ended up being handcuffed to her seat. The cause? The intoxicated woman had taken off her prosthetic leg and was swinging it violently at the flight attendants. One day, pigs may fly, but not this one. A pig was refused permission to fly when he attempted to board a plane in Connecticut because he was too noisy and unruly. They were asked to exit with the pig and his owner. A licensed therapist must approve emotional support animals before they can be used in a patient's personalized treatment plan. One of them gave the go-ahead for a turkey to board a commercial Delta flight, much to the delight of the other passengers. In 2012, a passenger on a trip from Manchester to Palma intentionally set fire to his traveling companion's hair, forcing the plane to make a detour. The prankster was removed from the flight and detained for threatening aircraft safety after the jet made a detour to London Gatwick. Pope Francis struck up a conversation with 2 attentive flight attendants as soon as he took his seat on a flight to Chile. He was informed by Carlos Cufardi and Paula Podest that their intended wedding venue had been wrecked by a significant earthquake. Thus, Pope Francis intervened, and the couple was wed there on the plane. Middle Eastern airlines frequently have a couple of additional pairs of wings. Birds of prey were not only allowed to have their passports, but they were also exempted from cage requirements while the plane is in flight. Even though airlines typically allow only 6 birds per aircraft, you can find yourself seated next to one, or, in the incidence of one extraordinary journey to Jeddah, as many as 20 falcons. The last thing you want to discover that the door isn't properly closed 40 minutes into your flight. However, it is precisely what occurred in 2016 aboard a trip from the Philippines to South Korea. No passengers suffered any injuries, however, they were all given compensation for the anxiety they suffered. After hundreds of bees decided to settle down under the wing of a jet in Dallas in 2015, air traffic controllers had to deal with another form of avian traffic. The queen bee took to the air, and her obedient bees followed. A local beekeeper was contacted to get rid of them, which resulted in a 1-hour delay before the plane could take off. That's all for today, guys. We hope we haven't scared you off from boarding a plane. Let us know about your bizarre incidents on a flight, if any, in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily videos. We'll be back very soon. Take care.